Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and it is officially time to do the suspension lift on the Jeep. I am super excited, so stay tuned, guys. That is correct. I have gotten all the components for the suspension lift for the Jeep, and over the past few weeks I have been busy doing some of the pre-things to the Jeep so I can get ready to install this lift, and I am finally at that stage that I am ready to install it. But first, before we even get to the installation of the whole thing, I want to talk to you guys about what suspension I got and why I got it. Because I think it's very important to talk about why I chose what I did and went with the company that I did. Now, this will be a two-part video. The first part, this whole video, is nothing but what suspension did I get. The second video will be on the installation process, my thoughts on the whole process and how it went. Because I am installing this suspension myself here in the garage. Well, okay, not here, this is the house, but over in the garage. I am installing it with just the tools I have, my floor jack and my jack stands. No fancy lifts, no fancy tools, just the basic things that you need to install this lift so that I can show you guys and give you guys my opinion on how it went. Because for two reasons. One, I like to install components on my Jeep because then I know, one, how they're installed and how they are working. And two, it also gives me that ability to show you guys just how difficult or how simple it actually was. So let's get on to this lift here. Now I have some of the components here, not all of them because there's a ton of them, and some of them have already been installed onto the Jeep or are laying on the floor in the garage. But here are some of the components that I have for the suspension. So what company did I go with? I went with TerraFlex, and the reason I went with TerraFlex is I did a ton of research into all sorts of different companies. I watched a bunch of different YouTube videos. I looked at statistics. I looked at everything through and through, and my favorite came out to be TerraFlex. I liked what you got within this suspension kit itself. I liked the reviews that I saw. I didn't really see anything negative about it, and the company has a really good, backing of their product. If you have issues, they're there to help you. And I know a bunch of other companies do, but this is just what I went with. Now, the suspension kit that I got is the TerraFlex 3.5-inch ST3 Sport Suspension System. That's what they call it. And basically what the ST means is it is their street and trail suspension components. Now this kit is 100% bolt-on kit, minus having to drill 4 holes, 2 for each of the track bar mounting brackets. They give you some new beefier track bar mounting brackets, and you got to add 2 more holes to help put the new bolts in to support that bracket onto the factory one that's welded in place. But otherwise, everything else is completely bolt-on. Now this kit, which I'll go through some of the components here in a second, does not come with shocks. You have to buy the shocks separately. Now on the TerraFlex website, you have all sorts of different shocks that it's compatible with. They are known for sponsoring Falcon shocks, and that is what I went with. You guys can see right behind me I have the new Falcon SP2 3.3 fast adjustable piggyback shocks. Another component that I bought that isn't part of the suspension in itself, but it is just something that I bought for the Jeep to help, was the Falcon Nexus EF 2.2 fast adjustable steering stabilizer. Since I put the 35s on the Jeep, the old steering stabilizer, which was 3 years old, just really wasn't helping anymore. I was getting some death wobble when I'd go down the highway or hit a bump while I was driving on the highway, and I could feel it, and ever since I've installed it, took it all away. So, why did I go with this kit specifically? Like I said, I did tons of research, and one of the things I did know is I wanted a bolt-on kit. I didn't want a body lift kit because though that helps give you some articulation space for the tires, it really doesn't change where the frame is sitting. However, I didn't want one of the really high-end suspension lift kits where you have to really modify your Jeep past its stock form, and you have to start welding and cutting things, and it's just a bunch of things I didn't want to deal with, one. And two, I don't have those tools to be able to do that. So I went with a bolt-on kit, and especially because this is one of the first times I'm lifting a Jeep, I wanted to be able to have that ability to do it myself and to see just how well, just to see how hard or easy it truly is. Now, this kit I chose from all the research and videos I watched, and a huge shout out and thank you to Brad from Trail Recon. He did a video a couple years ago. It was a 2-part video where he was out in Moab, and they just did a bunch of different suspension bolt-on kits to a bunch of different, Jeeps. Showed the whole thing. He had all the statistics of it. He had reviews. He had people's opinions on it. It was just a great video, and it helped to narrow down the search. Because once I picked out 2 companies, I was in a debate between them, and that kind of helped me solidify which one I wanted. So I ended up with this kit. And this kit I got because, not just from the video, but because it came with more components than a lot of the other kits. A lot of the other kits, you get a lot of the basic things like the springs. Some of them come with shocks, or you have to buy shocks. And they come with some of the bump stops, things like that. But they don't come with all the other parts that this kit did. So for instance, this kit came with control arm drop down brackets and traction bar mounting, like new traction bar mounting brackets. A lot of other kits didn't. There were things you had to buy extra. And one of the kits I was looking at was a Dynatrac kit. It looked really good. It was awesome. But from reviews I read, people had to buy a bunch of extra things from Dynatrac to kind of fix some of the body roll and the handling, and this just had it already all in it for roughly the same price. Now, some of the components of this kit, you do get the springs that are rated. You get about a 2-inch spring for the rear and about a 3-inch spring for the front, and they are rated at different poundages and things like that, which will go really nicely with the adjustable shocks. Now, I did buy the adjustable shocks because, honestly guys, I'm overlanding. I load down the Jeep. Now, as I continue to do this, I have gotten more gear, more things for the Jeep. It is getting heavier. It's not the heaviest Jeep out there, but it is heavier. And I wanted the ability to adjust the suspension to fit my needs. So if the Jeep was loaded, I wanted to be able to adjust the suspension to hold that weight. And if it wasn't loaded, I wanted to be able to adjust it so that it felt better. I didn't want the suspension to feel stiff all the time. Some of the other shocks out there in suspension kits, just you get those shocks, they're not adjustable, and they're rated for overlanding. Great. But if you don't have that weight on it all the time, the ride is stiff as all heck. And I've been in a couple of Jeeps like that and rigs, and they are just really uncomfortable. So I wanted that ability to adjust them. Now, you also do get some joints bumpers here. You also get bump stop pucks back here to help adjust with them. You get, like I said, the different brackets. Now this is for the upper, or from the front traction bar. I already installed the rear the traction bar, and I already installed the control arm drop down brackets. You also get really good instructions. Now these instructions are super detailed. They have a lot of details in them. They have a lot of pictures with details. And honestly guys, from installing the few parts that I have already, the instructions and the pictures are spot on. They just depict underneath the Jeep perfectly, and it makes it really, really difficult to choose the wrong component or bolt that needs to be loosened, taken out, put in, whatever it is. The instructions work really, really well. And everything came packaged, decently well. Nothing was damaged, and the packaging got a little damaged from the shipping people, but everything else was just the way it was supposed to be. But I have all these different things. Now, in the instructions, it does say it takes about 9.5 hours to 10.5 hours, depending on shocks or not, to install this kit. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to take me way longer than that, because it is just me installing this. And so I'm going to be going much slower. I'm going to try and film it for you guys, so it's going to take even longer. But the instructions do claim it takes about 9.5 to 10.5 hours to install it. I don't think that's, probably if you're in a shop, several people, it's doable. Me, it won't take me way longer than that. But another thing about this kit is these kits, like, because TerraFlex has a bunch of other kits, but this kit is designed for Jeep, Wrangler, JLs, flat out. Now they do have a specific for if it's a 4-door or a 2-door. This is for the 4-door because that's what I have. They do make a 2-door kit. It's almost identical, just components are a little different for the 2-door. This is also compatible with every model of the Jeep Wrangler. Now they do say that the Rubicon model is the best to put this on, but you can put it on the others. But though it is compatible with all models, it is not compatible with all engines. It is compatible with most of the engines except for the 392. They have a completely different suspension kit for things that, you know, for the 392 itself. So, but this is good for the diesel, the 4xe, 6, you know, the 6-cylinder and the 4-cylinder with turbo, which is what I have. The other thing is this suspension is rated for a specific tire size. So with this, for a Rubicon model, you can run 35s, which is the sweet spot for it, and you can run as low as 33s. They don't recommend any lower, and you can run 37s and nothing higher, because the articulation and the clearance that you're going to have is suited for that. Anything bigger, you're going to lose it, and you'd have to have a whole different lift. Now, I went with the 3.5-inch lift because they had a 2, I do believe a 2 or a 1.5, 2, 3.5, and a 4. I went with the 3.5 because I wanted a 3-inch lift, but because they didn't have it, I went with one a little bit taller, but I didn't want a 4. So that's why I have it. And honestly, guys, so far, just from unboxing these components and being able to touch them, they are really strong, sturdy components. I like the fact that for the most part, most of the components have some kind of labeling on them that tells me what it is, and if not, the instructions do tell you really well, and they just seem really sturdy components. I just can't express enough. Like, this bracket is just as thick, if not slightly thicker, than the brackets that are the factory on the Jeep already. And TerraFlex has put in their instructions on their websites that this suspension and the components are designed to take a hit. They are designed to be worked, put to the test, and to be able to push your rig to new limits, which is what I plan to do with this, because having that extra clearance, there were some trails that I shied away from, or I attempted, and it just didn't go well, because the stock height was not enough clearance, and this should be able to provide me with enough clearance to be able to tackle it. And from all the pictures I have seen and everything else online, I am really excited to see what the Jeep looks like at this new height. Now, as I said before, this is going to be done in the garage by me. I'm going to do this and then tell you guys how it went and bring you along that journey. For the sole fact that, like I said, most people take their things to, you know, they take their rigs to a shop, the shop does it, and they really don't know much about what happened at the shop that it got lifted. And one, being able to do it, I have that ability, but two, I can then tell you guys how difficult this is. Because it is a bolt-on kit, it is designed to be bolted on and then driven, taken off onto the trail, on the road, whatever. But, you know, it's always, you look up videos, it's always nice and easy when people have the big, huge lift and all the tools, but what is it like in a garage? So that is what we will go over in the next video. But otherwise, guys, I am really, really excited to be able to start tackling this and just have all these new components and have the Jeep ride higher and a lot smoother. From everything I've read, it is a night and day difference between the stock, you know, suspension versus this one. So this should be an absolute blast doing this. Thank you all for joining me today. A link is in the description for this kit if you are interested in it. It'll take you to the TerraFlex site. where I got the kit, guys, it's a pretty sturdy kit so far. I'm impressed by the instructions and everything else. But a link is in the description below. Also, links for my other social media platforms are in the description below, as well as a list of parts that I use on my Jeep. It will be an updated list now that this stuff is happening, and because this is going to be happening over the course, but this will be added onto that list as well. But thank you all for joining me, and I will catch you all next time.